All right, hello, boys, girls, ladies, and gentlemen. We're going to talk about masks today. So we're going to jump into Photoshop here. I have this file right here. We will be making this in class. We have a green screen that says front, and we have a red screen that says back. Okay, on two different layers here. We just collapse those. All right, so we're going to talk about layer mask. Layer mask, we need to learn three things. One, layer mask are invisible. Two, layer mask only react to black and white. And three, layer mask are non-destructive. Okay, so we're going to unpack those as we go along. First, we're going to make a layer mask. Okay, now layer mask, we're going to make it on this top copy on the front here. Okay, and by doing that, I'm going to go to the bottom of my layers panel here, and I'm going to click this little box here. It looks like a little camera here, a little white box with a black circle in it. It says add layer mask. Okay, I click that, and it's going to add this invisible layer here. You see it didn't actually do anything to my layer here. It's just this white screen, and I can select both the layer and the layer mask. Okay, if I select the layer, and we're going to get a brush. Now I'm just going to get a regular brush here, okay? And I'm just going to get a hard round brush here. If you don't see that, you can just select your little brush thing and go down to general brushes. I'm just getting a hard round brush here, making sure my opacity is at 100%, my flow is at 100%, smoothing's off, and I'm just on normal mode. So I just have a regular black brush. Now if I'm on my layer and I take my foreground color, which is black, you can get your default colors by hitting D, and I paint, it's going to do what you think. It's going to paint black on my layer. Okay, so I'm going to Command Z, Command Z. But if I take that same brush with black and I paint on my layer mask, it is going to do that. Now it's not painting red or painting that word. What it's doing, it's concealing this layer. Okay, it's actually hiding that top layer so that I can see what's underneath. Okay, so the first two things we talked about, one, it's invisible. I don't see the black and white paint. I only see the effect. Two, it only reacts to black and white. Okay, when I say it reacts to black and white, so we see what black does. What if we hit our X key to switch our front and background colors? I paint with white, you'll see that it paints that right back. So that's the third point, is that it's non-destructive. So I haven't actually done anything to my actual layer. I'm only painting on the mask. Let's do that one more time. I'll get black and I'm going to paint all over this. Okay, again, you can see it over here. Okay, but if I right click on my mask and say disable mask, you can see I haven't done anything to it. The whole image is still intact. And then I right click and say enable mask, and it puts that back. And again, I can switch to white and I can put all of that back. Super duper. Okay, let's do something else. If we use a different color, let's get green. Let's paint on the layer mask with green because it only reacts to black and white. You see, it still reacts to it, but when I option click and look at my mask, it's only reacting to the black and white of that color. So the green's kind of a medium color, so it gives me a medium gray. Option click that back, and you'll see that I can kind of see that, but if I go and get my default color of black, you'll see it completely hides it and I see black. Let's try that with a lighter color. Let's go with yellow, and I'll go with yellow, painting on the mask, and you see it's a lighter gray still. So it only reacts to the black or white in the color on the mask. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get my default colors again by pushing D, make sure white's my front color, and I'm just going to paint all that back, and I have done no harm. Okay, now let's say that's great. What else can we do, Mr. G? Well, we're going to talk about adjustment layers that also have masks. Okay, so I'm going to get, let's say I want to change the color of this R. I'm going to get my magic wand tool because it's all red, and I can just probably select that right there. I'm going to make sure I'm on the layer where that word is at, not on the layer mask. I'm going to click on that, and I've got it. Okay, now I'm going to go up here, and instead of going to image and making an adjustment of hue saturation, I'm going to go to layer, and I'm going to go new adjustment layer. Okay, it's going to do the same thing, but it's going to give me a mask built into it based off of what my selection is. So it's going to ask you, what do you want to call it? I usually don't change it. Hue saturation 1, I'll say okay. Now what has happened here, you'll see that I have a mask that's built onto this new layer above there. And if I option click, you can see everything's isolated except for that letter R I selected. I just option click back on that. Okay. Now when I click on my actual new adjustment layer over here in my properties panel, I have those same adjustments I would have in my adjustment if I just did a regular adjustment. Okay, very cool. I'm going to go back. Let's change the O. Let's say I want to change the O. I'm going to select that. I'll go to layer and I'll go to new adjustment layer, and I will change, let's change the hue saturation again. Okay for that. Now I have a second one, and again, if I option click on that, you'll see I've just isolated the O. Okay, clicking on the adjustment layer, you'll see that I can change the color of that. Okay, so let's change that to like a fuchsia color there. Super. Now, when I say it's non-destructive, I can still turn these off, and you can see I haven't actually affected or destroyed anything on my original image, which is valuable. So if I come back a year from now, I can still open up this file and adjust it if I needed to. So like I say, if instead of the yellow, I decide that, man, I need that to be a different color, I can just simply go in there, change that adjustment layer, and change it to a different color, again, without destroying the original material, and it stays editable. Okay, so those are adjustment layers, and that is how we're going to use them to make this bowl of oranges look like this bowl of oranges. So what you're tasked with today is to use layers, mask, and adjustment layers to make this image look like this image. Okay, now let's go ahead and we'll make some adjustments here, and I'll get you started. I'm going to get my smart tool. I'm going to make a selection. I'm going to get my object selection tool, and let's start with this orange right here. Okay, I can get a selection there. I've got a pretty good selection. Looks awesome. I'm going to look back at my example real quick. I can see it's like a yellow, like a lemon. So I'm going to go over here, and I'm not going to make an adjustment. I'm going to go to layer, and I'm going to go new adjustment layer, and I'm going to get to that hue saturation. Okay, I'm going to say okay. Now there's my layer mask. I've got that. Now here I can take it and I can change the color of that fruit so it looks like I want. Turn the saturation down a little bit, maybe brightness up a little bit there until it looks like a lemon, like that. Okay, then I have it. Then I will move on to my next one. To move on to my next one, I'll get my selection tool, and I'm going to go to the next one. Now remember, I have to go back to where the source image is to select it. So I'm going to go and I'll go to this one. I'll make that selection, and I'll go over here and I'll change this one, which is kind of a deeper orange color here. So I'm going to go back to bowl of oranges. I will go to image, adjustments, and layer, and new adjustment layer, and new hue saturation. Okay, and then I will go here and I will change it. Okay, so that's how you're going to progress. Okay, if you look at your image, there is one image that is different. You have this, which is the only copy. That is a copy of this fruit up here. So there is a copy, but it has its own adjustment layer on that too. Okay, now this one is an exposure because I just wanted to take the darkness down. Okay, so do your best, use your judgment, and if you need help, raise your hand, do good work, stay creative, and I'll talk to you soon.